with respect to total output, that will be equal to individual MRs. This is the marginal cost with respect to total output. Remember this, Q1 plus Q2. And that has been equated to MR1 and MR2. Okay. So let's check how graphically we can understand the matter, to get idea of the entire context. Is the graph visible perfectly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So along the vertical axis, we are measuring prices, costs, etc. Revenues, all these things are measured along the vertical axis. Whereas along the horizontal axis, we are measuring output. So this black line, this line, this is the demand curve in market 1. So I'm calling it average revenue 1, AR1. This is the demand curve in market 1. And this red one is the demand curve in market 2, AR2. Okay, so there are two demand curves with two different elasticities. So I hope you are understanding. Black curve is steeper than that of the red one. So red demand curve is flatter, elastic, whereas the black demand curve is steeper, comparatively inelastic. Now, corresponding to each of the market demand curve, there are corresponding marginal revenue curves. Now, what is marginal revenue curve? That bisecting this angle between the vertical axis and the demand curve or average revenue curve, we generate the marginal revenue curve. So for this black demand curve, AR1, first market demand curve, the corresponding marginal revenue curve is given by this black line, MR1. Whereas for this flatter demand curve, the corresponding marginal revenue is given by this line, MR2, given by this line, MR2. Okay. And we have a marginal cost curve, which is function of Q1 plus Q2. Therefore, I'm calling it total marginal cost, TMC. Okay. Now the ruling TMC party of West Bengal, total marginal cost only. Okay. Because it is based on the total output. So we have MR1, MR2 in our hand, and we have the marginal cost curve based on the aggregate output Q1 plus Q2. First, what we have to do, we have to find out total marginal revenue curve. Total marginal revenue curve. Now, how we will get total marginal revenue curve? Horizontally summing MR1 and MR2, we will generate TMR, total marginal revenue curve. Now look, for this portion, this is MR1. Okay? This is MR1. And this is MR2. Now for MR2, this is the starting point. Because AR2 is starting from this point, so MR is also starting from this point. So this is the starting point for AR2 and MR2. So up to these dotted lines, there is no presence of second market. Up to this dotted line, there is no presence of second market. So if I want to have the aggregation of the two marginal revenue curves, I have to add MR1 with 0 because there is no presence of second market. Okay. So up to this point, up to this point, we have only the first market. So part of the TMR will be given by this. Now, starting from this point, we have MR2 as well. So at each and every point of the black line, I have to add these MR2. Now, the easiest way to find out this, I have MR1 up to this and MR2 starting from these O up to this. So what I'll do, I'll add the MR2 intercept with that of MR1. So MR1 is up to this and MR2 I'll add, and roughly I am getting this value, the black part and the red part. So adding these two things, I'm getting a point. So once I get the starting point and these addition, I can join these 2 points to generate TMR, total marginal revenue curve. So please tell me whether you understood how we derive the total marginal revenue curve from MR1 and MR2. Is it okay? Or I need to repeat?
Ma'am, can you repeat once again?
Okay. AR1, MR1, AR2, MR2, these things are clear to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now look, this is the starting point of MR1. And this is the starting point of MR2. So up to this level, is there any MR2?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Yes or no?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So if you want to add the marginal revenue of the two markets, what will be the shape of the marginal revenue curve? Will it be identical to that of MR1 or something else? What is your understanding? Please let me know.
Identical to MR1.
Identical to MR1 till P1. Yes, ma'am. Till that point.
Till MR2 starts.
Yeah.
Till
Till
the
MR2.
starting point of MR2. Okay. So starting from MR1 starting point up to MR2 starting point, the total marginal revenue will be identical with MR1 because there is no presence of MR2. Now, when we are getting the starting point of MR2, from this level we have to add. So we are just marking this point, nothing else. Then what we are doing, I have MR1 and MR2. So what I am doing, up to this there is MR1, and starting from 0 up to this we have MR2. So what I am doing, up with this MR1, I am adding this intercept. Okay, with MR1, I am adding this part up to this. So this plus this is giving up to this stretch starting from 0. So this stretch is indicating MR1 plus MR2. Am I right? This point,
Yes,
MR1 plus MR2 along the horizontal axis?
Ma'am, I have a question here.
Yes.
The point where the TMR curve departs from the MR1 curve, shouldn't we mark that on the x-axis instead? I mean, on the quantity axis instead of the price axis?
I didn't get your point. Would you please repeat your question once more?
Yes, ma'am. The point where the TMR curve deviates from the MR1 curve, shouldn't we mark that point on the quantity axis instead of the price axis? Because after that point, for the TMR, we are considering two curves, MR1 and MR2, which when we add have give us two different values of prices for a single quantity at Karasuma. So shouldn't we mark the point where they depart on the quantity axis instead of the price axis?
Never. are horizontally summing two lines. Two straight lines you are adding, nothing else. Okay, two straight lines you are adding. One is given by MR1, another is given by MR2. You are adding the two lines, that's all. It's very simple. There is no economics in it. It's very simple. I have one line like this and another line like this, you know, and I want to add these two lines. When I will like to add these two lines up to this level, I have only one point, one line, you know. So for this part, this will be the part of the curve. Okay, there is no issue of quantity, price axis, etc. And what we can do, if I get 2 points, I can draw a straight line. So what I can do, I can mark the horizontal stretch of the two lines. This and this. Okay, so
Yes, ma'am. That is what I was.
got the point?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So it's a simple horizontal summation. Okay, there is no economic theory for horizontally summing two lines. Once we get the horizontal, why we are summing? In the background, there is economics. After summing, what we are getting, how it will help us, there is economics. However, there is no economics at all when we are adding two lines. Okay. So if we now understand how the TMR curve has been generated, I hope this is clear to all of you now.
Ma'am, while making it, should we make the TMR curve with our intuition and then mark point E, or is there any other way?
Regarding E,
regarding making the TMR curve, so while drawing it, we should just draw it with our intuition.
Intuition is, you know, under price discrimination, your plant is the same plant. Okay, from that plant you are getting all the outputs, etc. So first you have to find out what will be your aggregate production. That aggregate production you will get equating total marginal cost with the total marginal revenue curve. Though you are selling the commodity in different markets, your source, that is the plant, is a single plant. So first you have to say what will be your total production. So this is the intuition behind it. You want to find out what will be my total production, because after production takes place, following different logic, you will bring the commodities in different markets, charge different prices, all these issues are coming. First, you need to find out what will be my total volume produced in the plant. Okay, so that is the intuition, that is the question, that is the objective for which you are deriving your TMR. Okay, got it?
Yes, ma'am.
So, TMR is now in our hand. And from the given cost function, we will be able to derive the total marginal cost. Now, marginal cost, you know, from your earlier semester, you have knowledge. The rising part of the MC above the minimum of AVC will be relevant for us. So, I am considering only the rising part of the MC. So here in the next semester, you will draw the entire average cost, marginal cost curve and consider the rising part. However, to keep the thing simple, and since you know the rising part of the MC above the minimum of AVC will be relevant, therefore, I am considering only a positively sloped curve. Okay, the rising part of the marginal cost curve, and calling it TMC because it is based on the total output. Now, where this marginal cost is cutting the total marginal revenue. Remember, both total marginal revenue and total marginal cost are based on Q. They are at same floor. Both of them are based on Q. So when TMC is cutting the TMR, we are getting the aggregate output. So we are at least understanding this volume will be produced by the firm. Monopolist will produce this blue amount, Q, which will be equal to Q1 plus Q2. Once this takes place, then the question is, how much will be sold in market 1? What will be the price? How much will be sold in market 2? What will be the price? So first we have to generate this E. And thereby we need to settle what will be the aggregate volume. The second part is clear to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So first step is derive TMR. Second step is equate that TMR with TMC and find out the aggregate volume of output to be sold. Now, once this is done, we are marking the level of marginal cost. Okay, we are marking the equilibrium level of marginal cost. Okay, and that we are equating with each of the MR. Now, let's go back to the mathematical equation. What we did, MC is equal to MR1. MC is equal to MR2. MC, that is based on total output, that has been equated to MR1, which is a function of Q1 only. MC, that will be equated to MR2, which is a function of Q2 only. So that we are doing graphically. So we are marking the marginal cost level. And that marginal cost at equilibrium will be equated to each of the MR. So just stretch the line, and then it is cutting the MR1 curve at point E1 and MR2 curve at point E2. This is the third step. Equate MC with MR1 and MR2. Is it clear? Third step?
Yes, ma'am.
Rest of the students, are you understanding this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, so no confusion for the third step. Next, we will go for fourth step. From E1, I am dropping a perpendicular along the Q axis and getting Q1, where MR1 has been equated to MC. MR1 has been equated to MC. We are marking Q1. This is the profit maximizing output in market 1. Mathematically also, you are doing the same thing. You are equating MC with MR1 and finding the profit maximizing output of firm 1. In the similar fashion, you are marking the profit maximizing output of market 2. So we are getting profit maximizing output of market 1, dropping a perpendicular from E1 to Q axis. And we are also getting the profit maximizing output in market 2, dropping a perpendicular from E2 along the output axis. Is this step clear? How we are understanding how much will be sold in market 1 and how much will be sold in market 2? Any question, any query?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Once we understand this will be Q1, I have to consider, I have to find out what will be the price. So I'll extend this output up to the demand curve or AR curve faced by market 1. So I'll extend this output up to the demand curve or average revenue curve in market 1. And that will give me the price of the commodity I'll charge. The price of the commodity I'll charge, P1. This is the output, in the second market. I'm extending it up to this AR2, or the demand curve of the second market. Once we get this point, dropping a perpendicular on the vertical axis, we are getting the price, P2. So price will be determined by the demand curves. So once the quantity is determined by MR1 is equal to MC and MR2 is equal to MC principal, for these output, we have to consider the corresponding price following the demand curve. In mathematical case, we are doing the same thing. First, we are finding Q1 star and Q2 star. Now, putting these values in the individual demand curves, we are finding out P1 star, P2 star. So we are doing the same thing graphically. First, we are marking Q1 star, extending this up to the demand curve and marking P1 star. Q2 star, extending this up to the demand curve and marking P2 star. So all done. I am getting the prices in market 1 and market 2. I'm getting the prices in market 1 and market 2. Okay, so what I am getting, how much will be sold in market 1, how much will be sold in market 2, what will be the price in market 1, what will be the price in market 2. Next, if you add these OQ2 with these OQ1, you will get OQ. So for OQ, what we are doing, I have OQ1 up to this. With these, if you add these OQ2, you will reach at this point. This was the total output, So adding OQ2 with OQ1, basically we are getting OQ. Alternatively, this was the total output. If we distribute the outputs in the two markets in this way, again, we will be able to regenerate the total output Q. Okay, finally, what we are finding that for the market where the demand is comparatively inelastic, price is higher. P1 is greater than P2. Okay, and E1 is less than E2. E1, it is steeper. E1 is less than E2. So what we are finding, however, okay, so inelastic the demand, inelastic the demand, higher will be the price charged by the monopolist. Inelastic demand means as price changes, there will be not much change in the demand pattern because the commodity is essential to you. Whereas comparatively elastic demand means you have some substitutes or because of any reason that commodity is not that essential to you. So when price will increase, there will be much change in demand pattern. Okay? Since the monopolist controls the price, sole power to settle the price in each of the markets. Inelastic the demand, that is lesser the scope to shift, higher will be the price. Greater the scope to shift, that is elastic the demand, lesser will be the price. Okay, so this is all about price discrimination, third degree price discrimination. Monopolists can charge different prices in different markets, having different elasticities of demand. Last day, I started to talk about an easier context, an easier context where there is monopoly in the domestic market, whereas perfect competition in the foreign market. Monopolist, the person is or the firm is a sole producer in the home market, whereas the firm is one of many producers in the foreign market. So in the domestic market, the firm faces the negatively sloped demand curve as it will be faced by any monopolist. And this was the corresponding marginal revenue curve, MRD. This is the corresponding marginal revenue curve. MR domestic. Okay. Then we considered AR foreign, average revenue curve, in the foreign market. Under perfect competition, the demand or the average revenue curve will be a horizontal line parallel to quantity axis. So this is the ARF, which is equal to PF, price in the foreign market, because price under perfect competition is given. So it is given. You have to sell the commodity given this price. At this price, you have to sell it in the foreign market. You have no market power in the foreign market. And AR is exactly equal to MR. So P is equal to AR is equal to MR in foreign market. I hope this you learned in the last semester. Okay. Under perfect competition, price will be exactly equal to AR. Price is equal to AR is equal to MR. Under monopoly, this part is true. Price is equal to AR. However, MR is a different line because AR curve is a negatively sloped line. Okay, or price line is a negatively sloped line. So for the domestic market, this is the AR curve, whereas this is the MR curve. For the foreign market, this is both the AR and MR, and also this is indicating the price of the commodity. Up to this, is it okay? What will be the shape of the demand curve in the domestic market? What will be the shape of the demand curve in the foreign market? What will be the MR in the domestic market? What will be the MR in the foreign market? Is this clear to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So once we understand this thing, the next task will be to add two MR curves. Next task will be to add the two MR curves. Okay. Now for the second MR curve, this is the starting point. Okay. So if I want to add the MR1 curve with the MR2 curve, up to this position, up to this level, is there any MR2? Up to this level? Up to
No, ma'am.
No,
No.
ma'am.
no? So when we will like to derive the TMR, the first part will be identical to that of the domestic market. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
After this, we have to add this MR with this MR. Now, what is the slope of MR when I am at the green level? It is infinity. Okay. Therefore, if you add something with infinity, this is infinitely elastic. So if you add something with infinity, what will be the value? Add any number with infinity, what will be the value?
Infinity.
Infinity only. So henceforth, up to this point, this will be the part of the TMR. Henceforth, if you add the MR of the domestic market with MR of the foreign market, you have to follow this level. Am I right? So the orange curve will be the TMR. The orange line will be the TMR. Is it okay? Do you need any repetition? Any clarification? Is it okay to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Next, we have the marginal cost curve, which is a function of total output, QF plus QD, because source of production is same. So there is a single cost function, and there will be a unique marginal cost corresponding to the total output Q. Now, this marginal cost is cutting the TMR curve at this point, E. So we are marking the aggregate output to be produced. Aggregate output to be produced, given by Q. So this Q is equal to QD plus QF. This is the aggregate output. Okay. Now, once we get the aggregate output, we are spreading the marginal cost line, the marginal cost line for firm 1. This is the level of marginal cost, equilibrium marginal cost. This marginal cost is cutting the MRD at this point of kink. At this point, total marginal revenue is equal, at this point, total marginal cost is equal to MRD. Okay, so the outputs will be sold in domestic market is determined by this point, ED. This output is given by QD. Okay. Now, expanding or extending.
Could you repeat this once more?
Yes.
Which one? MC is cutting MRD at ED.
Yes. This is the level of equilibrium MC. This is the level of equilibrium MC. Okay. And this line is cutting MRD line at this point. At the kink?
Yes, ma'am.
So MRD is equated with equilibrium MC at this point of kink, ED?
Yes, ma'am. But like according to the diagram, when it is cutting to below.
It is cutting?
Ma'am, will it always cut at king?
I am not getting your question. Would you please repeat it once again?
Ma'am, I am saying, will it always cut at the kink or it is?
Yes, it will always cut at the kink, because that is the equilibrium level. When there is this kind of kink, it will always cut at the kink. Okay, for this market, it will always cut at the kink, this kind of market. Upanita, you had some other question?
Yes, ma'am. Like according to the diagram, like the MC curve, like, there is a red line, I guess. The red line is cutting like the MR. It is cutting the PF curve like at a point which is below ED, right now, which I can see.
This part is not relevant anymore. This part is irrelevant to us once we have the TMR.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
This
Yes,
part is irrelevant now. Okay, no more there.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes, I got your point.
So,
Yes.
this is QD. From this QD, you will be able to determine PD, extending it up to the demand curve faced in the domestic market. Okay, so price in the domestic market will be settled at this level. output will be sold in the domestic market will be this. So output sold in the foreign market will be Q minus QD. This is, sorry. QF will be Q minus QD. So domestic price will be PD. Quantities will be up to QD. Rest of the amount will be sold in the foreign market, and the price is given by this level. You know, this is the given price in the foreign market, PF. Okay, so this is the price discrimination issue. If one market is competitive or price elasticity is infinity in one market, whereas the domestic market price is given by a negatively sloped line indicating comparatively inelastic demand. Okay, in literature this is known as dumping. Okay, later you will learn about all these things, you know. In the next semester you will learn about all these things. You know, for this semester, this much concept, you know, what is meant by price discrimination, why the volume of output will be different, why the prices will be different, you know. So this understanding is more than enough, you know, to understand the profit maximizing exercise, what is the implication of this profit maximizing exercise, you know. So if you understand these up to these, you know, that is more than enough. Okay, so any question regarding these two graphs? If you do not have any question, we will proceed for the mathematical part. So it is clear what is the meaning of this last equation, MC is equal to MR1 is equal to MR2, or separately MC is equal to MR1, MC is equal to MR2. Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I had a problem
Yes,
where
ma'am.
demand is relatively inelastic on that point.
Demand
In the first
is
one.
inelastic.
Ma'am, in the first diagram.
This one. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, here
Yes.
in the linear demand curve, ma'am, all types of elasticities are there, ma'am. And specifically in monopoly, we are considering E greater than 1. So inelastic means we are comparing it with the second AR curve.
Okay, Ion. The demand curve, you know, the black demand curve, along that straight line, elasticity is varying. And if you look at the diagram and if you look at P1, price has been charged only in the part when E is greater than 1. Separately, along the red demand curve, since it is a linear demand curve, elasticity is varying in between 0 to infinity. Okay. However, if you look at the diagram, the price has been charged only in the elastic part of the demand curve. So the issue you are raising, that is related to individual demand curves. It is not coming when I'm comparing two demand curves, telling that this demand curve is inelastic compared to the other. Okay, so the point you are raising, that is related to the issue when we will consider a specific demand curve, the price charged by the monopolist will be settled only in the elastic portion of the demand curve. Ion, you got the point?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, here we are considering relative elasticity, like we are comparing these two. So that question doesn't come in like whether the individual,
Yes,
like,
this question is not coming.
yes.
You know, when I'm comparing the things, you know, the question is not coming at all. However, since the question is in his mind, it is better to clear only at the middle point, you know, E will be equal to 1, rest of the stretch, E will be greater than 1. Here also for the red line too, only in the middle point, it will be equal to 1. For the rest of the stretch, E greater than 1. Since the question is coming in his mind, it's better to clear. So for each demand curves individually, all the requirements are satisfied. There is no problem. Whenever you will equate MR with MC, all this logic will be naturally satisfied. You will not find that there is any change in that logic. However, we are comparing the two entire demand curves. One is inelastic, another is elastic. Okay, is it clear? So should I proceed towards the mathematical things? Oyon?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fantastic. Before proceeding to the mathematical thing, because we will derive the elasticities, etc., one more thing I'd like to add. Are you familiar with the learner's index of monopoly power? You did it in the last semester? Micro part?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, no problem. It's very simple, we are considering price minus marginal cost with respect to price, difference in price and marginal cost. How much you are getting from the market and what is the unit, what is the change in cost due to change in output, So what you will get if you sell one additional unit, that is price, per unit price. Selling one additional unit, we will get P. Okay. If the price is 10 rupees, if I can sell one unit more, I'll get 10 rupees. What is marginal cost? What will be my incremental cost to produce that one additional unit? That is, to produce that additional unit, whether my incremental cost is 5 rupees, 6 rupees, 7 rupees, etc. So P minus MC is the difference between 10 and 6, say. So 4. So this kind of thing. What I am getting selling one additional unit and what I am losing producing an additional unit. So P minus MC divided by P. This is the measure of monopoly power. This is the measure of monopoly power. This is called the learner's index. Okay. Now this MC will be equal to MR at profit maximizing situation. MC is equal to MR at equilibrium. At profit maximizing situation, the profit maximizing condition of the monopolist is MR is equal to MC. So this MC can be replaced by MR. Now there is a relationship between MR and price elasticity of demand. This is given by MR is equal to P into 1 plus 1 by ED. So if I do so, L can be simply presented by minus 1 by ED. So looking at the elasticity of demand, we can say whether the monopolist has greater power, lesser power, etc. Inelastic the demand, higher will be this value. Elastic the demand, that is higher this value, that means elastic the demand, greater will be this value. So the value of this ratio will fall. Lower is the value of this E, higher will be 1 upon E and greater will be the power. So elasticity determines power of the monopoly, power of the monopolist. Okay. So there is famous learner's index of measuring market power. So using that, we get this L can be presented only in terms of elasticity of demand. And elasticity of demand has immense role in context of determining the market power. Lower the value, higher the power, greater the value, lesser the power. Okay. So keeping this point in our mind, we will proceed for this numerical exercise.
Ma'am, here ED we will calculate at the same price quantity combination only.
Oyon, once more.
I am saying when we are comparing ED, we will calculate with the same price quantity combination only.
Yes. The price, determined at equilibrium, etc.
Only equilibrium. Okay, ma'am.
All these calculations are post profit maximization. First, you have to determine what is the profit maximizing output, price, profit, and then you are measuring all these things. Okay? Because
Yes, ma'am.
power is coming once the price is settled, otherwise not. So we are moving to this numerical exercise. P1 was given by 100 minus Q1. P2 is 80 minus 2Q2. And cost equation is C as a function of Q1 plus Q2 whole square. And you told me that you got these values. Q1 star is equal to 22, Q2 star is equal to 6, P1 star is equal to 78, and P2 star is equal to 68. So all these things are in your hand. Okay. Now, on the basis of this, we will determine the price elasticity of demand in market 1 and price elasticity of demand in market 2. And if you look at the solution, what we are finding, price in market 1 is 78, higher price. Okay. Elasticity or absolute elasticity is lesser, only 3.55. Here the price is lesser and elasticity is higher. So lower the elasticity, higher the price. Inelastic the demand, higher will be the price, or higher the price, inelastic will be demand, So that we will be able to prove. Okay, and then we will be able to derive the market power in each of the market. Once we derive the values of E1 and E2, we will be able to determine the market power. In the first market, it will be given by minus of 1 by minus 3.55 or simply 1 by 3.55. And in market 2, it will be given by 1 by 5.67. Okay. So you will be able to find out the market power in each of the market 2. So first, how we will find these E1 and E2?
Ma'am, with the MR, the formula.
Yes.
The MR formula.
So please write down MR1 is equal to
P1 in brackets
P1
1
into 1 plus 1 by E1. MR1 is equal to P1 into 1 plus 1 by E1. And MR2 is equal to P2 into 1 plus 1 by E2. So first you write down this. MR1 is equal to P1 into 1 plus 1 by E1. MR2 is equal to P2 into 1 plus 1 by E2. Then we have to find out MR1 and MR2. How we will get MR1?
100 minus 2 times 22. So basically PQ, and we multiply it with, we multiply P1 with Q1, and then we find TR, and then from there we find MR, and then put the values.
Very good. So TR1 I need, and from there we will be able to calculate MR1. TR2 I need. So what is my TR1 value? What is P1, Q1 in terms of the numerical things I have?
100 Q1 minus Q1 square.
And what is TR2? Anyone else?
Ma'am,
80 Q2 minus 2 Q2 square.
So my MR1 will be 100 minus 2Q1.
Yes, ma'am.
And this will be
80 minus 4Q2.
very good. So MR1 is equal to P1 so put your P1 value there, and you have Q1 with you, so you need know the MR1 star as well. So at equilibrium, you know Q1 star and P1 star. So put the values and calculate the elasticities.
The first one is minus 3.5 and second one is minus 5.67.
So first you tell me what will be the value of MR1?
56.
56. What is P1? 78, I
78.
think.
Yes, ma'am.
From this equation, find out E1. This is minus and here what is MR2? $56.
Yes, ma'am.
Because at equilibrium MR1 is equal to MR2.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
And P2, what is P2?
68.
68.
Okay, so in this way we can calculate the elasticities in the market and can come to the conclusion. Now what we are finding, okay, whereas P1 star is greater than okay, so we can come to the conclusion any question?
No, ma'am.
Now calculate Lerner's index. Minus 1 by E. So this is also minus. So what are the values of L1 star and L2 star?
And 0.28 and 0.176. Therefore, market power of L1 is more.
Yeah. market, market power for the first market will be higher compared to the second market. Okay, so in this way we can solve for this kind of exercises. So I hope price discrimination is more or less clear to all of you. As you read more, go through these things repetitively, practice some more numerical exercises, the things will be more clear to all of you. For all the questions, try to solve, all these things, finding Q1 star, Q2 star, P1 star, P2 star, what are the values of elasticities, what is the market power, all these things. Next, we are moving to multi-plant monopolist. Here, the monopolist will sell in a single market. However, the plants using which the monopolist is producing the commodities, that is more than one. So the monopolist has few plants depending on the raw materials or availability of the resource. Monopolist is setting, few plants. Suppose it is petroleum kind of thing. Only in the sea surface where you have petroleum, you have to, settle the plant. So in this way, monopolist, for petroleum, etc., there is monopoly. So, the government is setting the plants only in the seasides where there is oil, natural oil. So it is like that. However, it is sold in a single market. Okay? In domestic market of the country only. Suppose we are not exporting anything. So it is sold in the domestic market only. Okay? So this is the concept. So here, I hope you are understanding, there will be a single average revenue curve and corresponding marginal revenue curve. However, there will be two total cost curves. And therefore, to separate marginal costs, if we consider for simplicity, there are two plants. So there will be two marginal cost curves corresponding to two total cost curves. However, there will be a single demand curve and therefore a single marginal revenue curve. Okay, so aggregation will be take place in terms of MC1 and MC2. Whereas there will be a single MR. So here we need to aggregate MC1 and MC2, horizontally sum two marginal cost curves, and we generate the total marginal cost. That total marginal cost will be equated to the unique marginal revenue curve. And that will determine the total output produced. Once the total output is produced, the second question is, how much will be produced from plant 1 and how much will be produced from plant 2? This question is coming. Okay, so a monopolist may produce his or her total output using more than one firms, more than one plants. There is a mistake.
Ma'am, can you please explain the multi-plant monopolist concept once again in terms of why we are horizontal summing MR?
Okay, I'm telling the same thing. A monopolist may produce his or her total output using more than one plants. Say a high-cost plant and a comparatively low-cost plant. Extraction cost, say something in one place, and in say Gujarat, and extraction cost is different in say Trivandrum. Okay, extraction cost is different, and therefore one is the high cost plant and another is the low cost plant. So there is a monopolist. Monopolist is producing the commodity using two plants, a relatively high cost plant and a relatively low cost plant. However, the monopolist is selling the entire amount in a single market. Now, from the high cost plant, we have a cost equation and corresponding the marginal cost equation. In the low cost plant, we have a cost equation and a corresponding marginal cost equation. Okay. So I have one C1 and MC1. I have one C2 and MC2. Now I have to make an aggregation of MC1 and MC2 and generate a total marginal cost curve. Since I sell the commodity in a single market, I have a unique marginal revenue curve corresponding to my unique AR curve. So, you know, the unique MR curve, therefore, will be equated to total marginal cost, which has been generated horizontally summing MC1 and MC2. This is the idea. Once we get the total output to be produced, in the second step, you know, how much should be produced in plant 1 and how much will be produced in plant 2, that will be decided. Okay. So in this case, there will be two cost functions, but a single market demand curve indicating a single total revenue curve. The two cost functions are C1 as a function of Q1 and C2 as a function of Q2, whereas the revenue function is given by R, which is a function of Q1 plus Q2, that is function of Q. Thus, the total cost will be C1 plus C2, whereas TR is given by R, which is a function of joint output or aggregate output Q. The profit function here will be given by pi is equal to revenue minus this entire cost, which is C1 as a function of Q1 minus C2 as a function of Q2. So let me know whether you are understanding this profit equation. Is it okay?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The first order conditions of profit maximization, that is, first I have to consider del pi by del Q1. Which is pi 1. That will be R prime Q. Actually, we will take the derivative with respect to Q1 only, because there is Q1 plus Q2 minus the other part of the cost is a function of Q2 only, so that part will not appear. In the similar fashion, we will derive del pi by del Q2, and that will be pi 2, which is equal to R prime Q minus, here in the C1 function there is no Q2, so C2 prime Q2. These two equations will be generated. Now, if you look at these two equations, MC1 is equal to MR. MC2 is equal to MR. So equilibrium condition can be written as MR is equal to MC1 is equal to MC2. MR is equal to MC1 is equal to MC2. Under discrimination, the equation was like this. So first I am considering the MC level at equilibrium and then equating it with the MR1 to find out the output in the first market, and then equating MC with MR2 to get the output in the second market. Here we will equate the general MR, equilibrium level of MR with MC1 to get how much will be produced in plant 1, and we will equate these with MC2 to find out how much will be produced in plant 2. So once we can generate, this will be the aggregate volume, following MR is equal to MC1 principle, we will find out how much will be produced in plant 1, and following MR is equal to MC2 principle, we will find out how much will be produced in plant 2. Thus, while taking decision about how much to produce in each plant, a multi-plant monopolist should be ensured MC1 should be equal to MC2. MC1 should be equal to MC2. Otherwise, the producer will continuously redistribute the production to the plant where marginal cost of production is lower. Now, this line is very important. We need to understand this point. Okay, so I hope up to this it is clear how the redistribution will take place. Now, I am adding one additional important point. I am telling that at equilibrium, you should ensure MC1 is equal to MC2. That means incremental cost of production in the first plant is equal to incremental cost of the second plant at equilibrium. Otherwise, when you are redistributing the output and saying that this is my final decision, 10 units should be produced in plant 1 and 30 units will be produced in plant 2. When I'm taking this final decision, with these optimum distribution of output, you should have incremental cost in plant 1 should be equal to the incremental cost in plant 2. Otherwise, you cannot have equilibrium. If you find that incremental cost in plant 1 is lesser, you will redistribute your production. Or if you find that if incremental cost in plant 2 is lesser compared to plant 1, you will be not able to reach at equilibrium because you will continuously redistribute your output to plant 2. So as long as you cannot equate the incremental marginal cost among the plants, redistribution will take place. You are not at equilibrium. To have an equilibrium or at equilibrium, you need to ensure the marginal cost coming at this redistribution, coming at this juncture, incremental cost of one plant is equal to incremental cost of the other plant. Okay? So this point is important. At equilibrium, we should have MC1 is equal to MC2. Otherwise, the plant will continuously redistribute its output to the plant where the incremental cost is lesser. Solving MR is equal to MC1 and MR is equal to MC2, we get optimum values of Q1 star and Q2 star. We will consider the principal minors of Hessian determinant to check the second order condition of profit maximization. Like rest of the cases, finally, whether this solution is maximum or not, or giving profit maximizing solution or not, to understand this, we need to consider the Hessian determinant. Okay, Hessian determinants should alter in sign starting with negative. So this is the idea of multi-plant monopolist. Now it will be your task to check the diagram from Pindi-Grubenfeld for multi-plant monopolist. So once you check this thing, in the next class, I'll draw the diagram and show how we are aggregating two MC curves, equating it with MR, etc. Okay. So I think everybody has pen and paper. So please take the paper and write the equation. P is equal to 100 minus Q1 plus Q2. This is the demand curve. So look, here in the demand curve, I am considering the aggregate output, Q. In case of discriminating monopolist, I consider two different demand curves. P1 is equal to a function of Q1, P2 is equal to a function of Q2. However, here I am considering aggregate demand curve, P is equal to 100 minus Q1 plus Q2. And produces identical outputs from two plants. There is no qualitative difference between the output. Identical outputs from two plants with cost functions C1 is equal to 2Q1 square and C2 is equal to 3Q2 square. Cost equation for plant 1 is given by C1 is equal to 2Q1 square. Cost equation for plant 2 is given by C2 is equal to 3Q2 square. So please write down the profit equation. I is equal to revenue minus C1 minus C2. So it will be I is equal to this P, 100 minus Q1 plus Q2, and this will be multiplied with what? What will be the quantity?
Q1 plus Q2.
Yes, Q1 plus Q2. Minus what is C1?
2Q1 square.
And what is C2?
3q2 square.
So this is pi. Okay. This is the profit equation. So using this equation, first you simplify this equation and then find out once you get the derivative, please tell me what is the value. What is del pi by del q1?
Ma'am, it's 100 minus 2q2 minus 6q1.
Minus 6. Ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Minus
6q1 minus 2q2 minus 6q1.
100 minus 2q1.
2q2.
Not clear. Please repeat.
Mom, 100 minus 2q2 minus 6q1.
This one.
100 minus 8q2 minus 2q1.
This is del pi by del q2.
Yes, 100 minus 8q2 minus 2q1.
100 minus
8q2
Hmm.
minus 2q1.
So these are the two equations.
Yes, ma'am.
So please check whether everybody is getting this or not. Once you get these two equations, simultaneously solving these two, you will be able to find out
Ma'am, answer is coming in decimal.
answer is coming.
In decimal.
Okay, no problem. Tell me what is your answer?
Ma'am, for x, it is 600 by 44, which is 13.636. Yeah, Q1.
636.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And ma'am, for Q2, it is 400 by 44, which is 9.090.
So rest of the students, please ensure whether you are getting these values or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, it is the same.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. Now, there will be a common price, So once you get these two things, to get P star, because there will be no P1 star, P2 star, P star so price will be determined by this equation. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am. 77.27.
7.27.
77.27.
77.27.
Okay, and you will be able to determine the pi star 2. Okay, so there is the profit equation. So you will be able to determine the price 2, profit 2. Once you get the value, please let me know.
Ma'am, is it 1136.27?
I don't know. Rest of the students will tell you. 1,
36.27.
Those who could complete up to this, please go for the second order conditions. Okay. Pi 1, 1.
Ma'am, it is coming, just there is a difference in the point, in the numbers after the point for rounding of issues.
What is your value?
Yes, ma'am.
What is your answer?
Ma'am, 1136.3636. Maybe for
I'm
rounding.
also getting that.
Because I made some adjustment in the decimal place. Maybe for that reason you are getting that change. Okay. So maybe because of that,
36.
3636.
Okay, no problem. Okay, very good. So next we can find out the second order derivatives.
-2 and -2.
Minus?
This d2 pi, pi 1 2 is equal to pi 2 1 equal to -2.
Okay. So, you will be able to write the
Hessian.
principal minors of the Hessian determinant. Now,
Hessian is coming positive
44.
44 and pi 1 1 is -6. So it's negative definite, which is maximum.
Yes.
so Which one? Which is next by 1, 1,
-6.
0,
Yes,
by 2, 2, less than 0. Okay. By 1, 1, by 1, 2, by 2, 1, by 2, 2. And what is the value?
44.
44.
Very good. Rest of the students, please check whether you are getting this or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's all done. Just a minute. So find the profit maximizing price and total output and the corresponding output from each plant. Okay. This question is theoretical. Explain both in this numerical problem and generally why the marginal costs of plant 1 are equalized at optimum. Okay. And illustrate your answer in a diagram that will be not part of this mathematical economics. But however, check Pindyck and Rubenfeld. We will also discuss the graph for clarify our understanding, but not for exam purpose. Okay, so please check all these things, and solve some other problems in a micro book too. You will get problems on discrimination, multi-plant monopoly, etc. So solve 1 or 2 more exercises so that you feel comfortable with these things. Okay, so that's all for today. And several other things we have to discuss in this context, that will be another type of profit maximization strategic behavior in context of oligopoly. So that I'll discuss on Friday. As I mentioned, Thursday, I'll be not able to take classes because of the makeup test. Okay, so Thursday I'll not take the class. However, I'll take it on Friday. So Friday, I hope I'll be able to complete this part.